Hey historians! Have you ever strongly believed in something that people around you just didn't agree with? Maybe you thought a new song was super cool, but all of your friends thought it was awful. Or maybe you really loved a certain sports team, and all of your friends supported the rival team. You may have tried to convince your friends to agree with you, or you may have said, "Fine, you have your beliefs and I'll have mine." Now, imagine if you believed in a certain religion and nobody in your community agreed with you. What if your community tried to keep you from doing the things you love just because of your religion? How would you feel then? These are questions that many Americans have had to answer throughout history as the United States religious landscape transitioned from its roots in Protestant Christianity to a diverse kaleidoscope of many different religions and belief systems. Today, we are going to look back at topics we've already covered, like immigration, to gain a deeper understanding of American culture. We've looked at historical eras and events through a few different lenses in this unit: fashion, music, sports, and more. But today we'll put on a new pair of shades and look at American history through the lens of religion. Before we get into it, let's look at our guiding questions. Our lesson essential question is, how has religion in America changed over time? Our guiding questions are, how did the Great Awakening reinforce the dominance of Christianity in America? How has immigration helped to diversify America's religious landscape? How has discrimination against minority religious groups limited their religious freedoms? Today, many diverse religions thrive in America, but this wasn't always the case. The original settlers of the 13 colonies established Protestant Christianity as the dominant religion. And although America's religious landscape has diversified over time, Protestant Christianity has remained the most widely practiced religion in the United States. This is partially a result of revivals and awakenings. A religious revival is like a big, energetic boost in people's excitement about religion, leading to gatherings where people listen to preachers, pray, sing, and share their religious experiences. An awakening is a revival on a larger scale that causes major changes in religion across an entire country. In the 1730s, one of these awakenings swept across Britain and its 13 colonies and revived people's passion for Christianity. Prior to this awakening, Enlightenment ideals were spreading, emphasizing reason, science, and secularism, or the idea that religion and government should be separate. Many people started to believe that their churches were dominated by the upper class, and the emerging middle class felt really disconnected from their congregations. Passion for religion grew stale, and church attendance decreased. Then the First Great Awakening began. Revivals spread like wildfire throughout Protestant congregations. In emotional sermons, preachers like Jonathan Edwards vividly explained Christian beliefs and said that everyone, regardless of social status, had a place in the church. Pause the video here and head to the PDF to examine an excerpt of one of Jonathan Edwards' speeches and predict the effects of this Great Awakening. As a result of the Great Awakening, church participation rapidly increased. New Protestant denominations developed, diversifying Christianity. Methodist, Presbyterian, and Baptist churches were built across the nation, and people flocked to these new congregations with a renewed commitment to religion. Later awakenings would even bring minority groups, such as African Americans, into Christianity, as denominations like the African Methodist Episcopal, or AME Church, were established. Throughout America's history, as new religions and belief systems diversified America's religious landscape, revivals and awakenings like this one reinforced the strength of Christianity. Pause the video here and head to your PDF to answer our first guiding question. How did the Great Awakening reinforce the dominance of Christianity in America? Although Protestantism has remained the dominant religion in America, waves of immigrants throughout history have brought diverse faiths, adding more complexity to America's cultural kaleidoscope. In the 18th and 19th centuries, immigrants were driven out of Europe by a variety of economic, social, and political push factors. Many came to America in search of economic security and freedom from religious persecution. Upon arrival in the US, they tended to settle in urban areas, where they clustered in ethnic neighborhoods that became little pockets of diversity, decorating America's religious tapestry. A large number of Catholic immigrants came to the United States during this era, especially from Ireland, Italy, and Germany. Catholicism is a major branch of Christianity, and although 51% of Americans today are Protestant, immigration has contributed to the growth of Catholicism. Today, 24% of Americans are Catholic. Pause the video here and head to the PDF to look closer at how immigration influenced the distribution of Christian sects and denominations across the nation. The 19th century also saw an influx of non-Christian immigrants. As anti-Semitism, discrimination, prejudice, or hostility toward Jewish people spread across Eastern Europe, Jewish families from Poland, Russia, Lithuania, and Ukraine came to America hoping to find religious freedom. Immigrants also arrived on the West Coast. During the mid-19th century, largely due to the gold rush and the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, Chinese immigrants arrived in places like California, searching for jobs and opportunities for wealth. They added Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and other traditional Chinese beliefs to our religious kaleidoscope. Though many of these immigrants faced religious discrimination, they created strong religious institutions that have had a lasting impact on America's religious diversity. Pause the video here and head to your PDF to answer our second guiding question. How has immigration helped to diversify America's religious landscape? In the lesson preview, you learned about Roger Williams, a man who pioneered the idea of religious freedom in America. Almost 100 years after his death, when America's founding fathers wrote the U.S. Constitution, the First Amendment granted freedom of religion to all Americans under the Free Exercise Clause. However, 19th century immigrants experienced discrimination that limited their ability to truly worship freely. Let's look at Jewish immigrants as a case study. They came to America to escape anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe, but were met with continued prejudice that limited their access to America's promise of religious freedom. Their religion, Judaism, was distinct from the predominantly Christian faiths of most Americans, and this difference often led to misunderstandings and stereotyping. Practices and traditions such as observing the Sabbath on Saturdays, dietary laws like keeping kosher, and wearing religious clothing like yarmulkes set Jewish immigrants apart and made them targets for discrimination. In some cases, synagogues or Jewish worship centers were vandalized or burned to the ground. Social clubs, colleges, and neighborhoods explicitly excluded Jewish people. In the workplace, they often faced barriers to promotion and were sometimes outright denied employment. Jewish businesses were often boycotted and vandalized. The portrayal of Jews in the media also contributed to prejudice. Negative stereotypes depicting Jewish people as greedy or controlling were common and increased anti-Semitism in the U.S. Immigration policy also limited access to America's freedom of religion. The Immigration Act of 1924 was intended to limit the number of immigrants coming to the U.S., but it disproportionately affected Jews, stranding many in dangerous situations in their home countries. Societal and institutional discrimination made it difficult for Jewish people to freely practice Judaism, and many felt like the American promise of freedom had been broken. Pause the video here and head to your PDF to examine how another minority religious group was affected by discrimination and immigration policies. Despite these challenges, Jewish people and other immigrants held on to their faith and traditions, helping to shape the diverse religious landscape of America we see today. Their journeys illustrate the harmful effects of religious discrimination and the limitations of religious freedom that many Americans have faced throughout history. Pause the video here and head to your PDF to answer our third guiding question. How has discrimination against minority religious groups limited their religious freedoms? What a journey! We've witnessed the enduring strength of Christianity, the rich diversity introduced by different faiths, and the struggles that some religions have faced in their own journey to maintain their religious freedom. Robert Kennedy, a former U.S. politician, once said, "America's answer to the intolerant man is diversity, the very diversity which our heritage of religious freedom has inspired." As we close out today's lesson, let's take Kennedy's words to heart. Let's celebrate our religious diversity as a tribute to the religious freedom upon which our nation was built. So, next time you drive through your hometown, observe the types of religious institutions you see and think about how history has contributed to the religious landscape in your own community. In the meantime, keep making history.
Hey, hey.